Hello tastemakers and grid weavers, welcome back to our channel. I'm Celine. I'm your resident timekeeper and guardian of the Council of Gaia. Today we're going to talk about the bees. The bees and the insects are super important. It's honestly one of the reasons why I'm here. The bees and insects are the foundation of the planet. They are the quiet architects holding the stories together. So their vibration is not just sound, it is coherence frequency that helps stabilize the planetary field. And their hexagonal geometry of the hive, the continuous humming, is the collective mind that never loses the whole. So these are expressions of the higher dimensional order that is expressing through this dense biological form. The bees weave and maintain the subtle timelines of Earth's living systems. Now, when the vibration is strong, the downstream cascades and it stays in harmony. There is the flowering of the plants, the insects that depend on them. The birds have food, the mammals, the soil, the web, the food chains. So when the bees' frequencies weaken or collapse, the planetary coherence also frays from the foundation upwards. And so they are not a side species, they are one of the most important species. They are part of the original regulatory system of the biosphere. And the bees are one of the remaining organic technologies still performing their original function. They are holding the frequency, maintaining geometric order, and keeping certain timelines thread from unraveling completely. And their decline is not only ecological, it is a measurable symptom of a larger incoherence that began when the fabric was torn. Because of the interrupted frequencies, all kinds of artificial signals are scrambling the natural organic rhythms of the planet. We see this clearly with the cell towers, 5G networks. They emit unshielded high frequency waves because these artificial frequencies do not follow the prime periodic structure or the natural life. They act as an entropic weapon. So they scramble the electron transport chain, causing the mitochondria to buzz wrong, which a lot of the research identifies as the primary driver for cancers and cellular decay. And back in the day, people started having diseases. So these are kind of the ripples from those rips. Because again, timelines are related to our DNA. So we experience diseases because of the feeling of these waves and ripples within the timeline. So maintaining the continuous operation of these massive data centers, we are increasingly turning the nuclear power. The cyber atomic demand for energy and cooling intercepts natural water inflows and threatening to collapse this sink and trigger a chain reaction of heating that spreads across the river systems and eventually the entire globe. These systems not only reduce bee activity and honey production, but they also consume massive amounts of water and generate excess heat. And so when we are on the verge of destroying the planet and aliens are coming, it is never a good sign because we're kind of kids playing in the playground and we've absolutely torn our playground. And now the principal, the teachers are here and now they're reprimanding, they're upset of why you destroyed the planet. They're not here to hurt us, but it's more so, well, the good ones at least. They're here to really teach us, be like, you cannot do that. We need to change the perception rapidly. And that heat increases evaporation and puts even more strain on already fragile environments that serve as this critical global heat sinks. So our current technological path, built on rapid cyberatomic scaling and constant high frequency emissions, it is essentially ripping open the universe at both a cellular and planetary scale. Through that, we're really noticing this almost like rampant events happening within our collective. There's a lot of propulsion, there's a lot of shakiness, both good and bad, because all of these timelines are clashing together. So the main chemical link to killing bees is the class of insecticides called neonicotinoids. These are systemic pesticides, meaning they are absorbed in the plant, including a lot of the pollens, the nectars. The bees pick them up while foraging, which damages their nervous system, weakens their immune system, and lead to colony collapse. Another one is glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup, which disrupts their gut bacteria, and it also causes leaky gut in humans. Other than that, certain fungicides and other insecticides can also contribute when they are used together. So, one of my main assignments was mostly around 16th, 17th, 18th century. I've covered a lot of World War II histories. There's just so much that's happened, and mostly about navigation and time. You can think of the bees as the navigators. So, my work with them from the great explorations, there's several events that has changed history, especially when the British Empire colonized all of these places. The Mughal Empire, for example, and the Napoleonic Wars. As an Indigo 3, my soul's contract, my primary mission was involved in healing a lot of colonial and imperial timelines directly through my physical body, through my blood. And, when you think about having royal bloodlines, royal Lyran Syrian bloodlines, it is a lot more to clean up. So, my body is literally a battleground for transmuting these energies. And for a while, I had autoimmune diseases, I had asthma, I had all kinds of thyroid issues, but I eventually healed myself the more that I processed a lot of these patterns within myself and patterns within my families. And now that I've switched into my Indigo 1 contract, it's mostly about ley lines and DNA. So one of my recent grid works, and this is one of the chaotic timelines too. Well, I keep going back and forth to it, and it's like a hodgepodge spaghetti. During that time, Britain was moving far east to India, and East India Company consolidation and the declining Mughal Empire created a lot of these major energetic imprints. Napoleonic Egyptian campaign, this was around 1798. This was a strategic interception of British routes to the east. And so, by attempting to control Egypt, Napoleon aimed to disrupt British access to India and the broader Far East trade networks. So, why is Napoleon and France relevant to our history in America? Well, for a lot of reasons, not just in the past, but now also. So, if you remember, and if you have $100 bill, Benjamin Franklin is on that $100 bill for a very good reason, because as America's chief diplomat in France, he was the one who played a major role in securing the French support during the Revolutionary War at a time when the colonies were struggling against England, and they were helping us, providing a lot of critical money, troops, and naval power that helped turn the tide. So that support came at a very steep cost because France was already deep in debt from previous wars. The additional expense of backing the American Revolution, this is what pushed the country even closer to financial collapse. So by the late 1780s, France was facing severe food shortages and economic crisis. So these conditions helped spark the French Revolution in 1789. A lot of these timelines, when we are weaving, we're connecting the past, present, and future. It is a single web. So, one decision that was made in Paris to support a distant war in America helped create the conditions back home just a few years later. So when you think about these historical figures and they're like, oh, I have a brilliant idea, or they pray and ask for guidance, they're really talking to a future version. Or let's say us now, we're informing those events in the past so that we can change the future events. So if we can influence Napoleon from doing something different in the past, because the past is still happening. The French Revolution is still happening in the past because it like circles. So when us timekeepers, we time travel and we inform the past so that here in the present events can happen, and then that threads into the future. In the future, we can find better timelines there too. So, the instability in France eventually led to Napoleon's rise and his campaign in Egypt, which ties directly into the British push forward in India and the shifting of power across multiple continents. When I'm learning about these histories, when I'm moving into these different time fields, it's like a movie in my head, and I often see images. Sometimes I feel it. I don't process it as much unless I really need to. I mostly just weave the different timelines, and yeah, it's like a movie screen. I'm just like rewatching the events, and if there's something that needs to be collapsed or needs to be processed, then that changes a lot of how the storyline goes. It's like a movie, right? Sometimes if you're looking at IMAX strip, if you're looking at a movie film, there are kind of not necessarily blank strips, but it's like kind of glitches within the band of the film. Nothing happens in isolation. Every thread we pull affects the whole web. So, when we are trying to connect with our highest self, when we're trying to connect with our ancestors, those are versions of us that we are speaking to of a different timeline, much higher bandwidth of reality. And we are constantly informing the past, present, and future. These events sit within a larger wave of the European colonial expansion, resource extraction, power struggles that rippled across multiple continents that we are still experiencing until today. Because the perception of reality, the navigation is off. One of the reasons we say Middle East is because of the UK. So why do we say Middle East? Middle East of what? Okay, Middle East of London. Why do we say Far East? So UK is not the point, but when we say things like that, it skews the perception of reality. There is no single point or capital in the map that is the single point. Okay. Me and my guides spend a lot of my time strategizing as above and below. When I change something in the past, it reverberates to the present and future. I'm not the only special one. Like, there is a lot of us. You can do this as well. This is how you weave your own timelines. That's why when we speak about what does it mean to be conscious, right? It's not necessarily about morality, although we should all strive for the highest good, but it's really about piecing information and going to the origin of the stories so that we can collapse the whole wave function. With that, we can change history and correct a lot of the distorted histories, distorted timelines. Another important thing is the whole concept and story about King Arthur and the Philosopher's Stone. When that stone is hard and calcified, our sight is also divided. We're not seeing the third point of view, but when the Amrita, the golden nectar, starts to transform, this is when you can activate your chakras, which are your energetic vortices. These are what carries the tones, the music of spheres, the music of the universe. And this is what Pythagoras has spoken about. This is what the yogis have talked about. It transforms into a golden apple. So whenever I go to the Akash and I go to the tree of knowledge, there are these golden apples, and it is what helps us give consciousness to the universe. I planted an apple tree in my backyard, and I have exactly 12 apples, but one fell. So when I'm in the Akash, it's not golden, but let's pretend it's golden, okay? It's from my tree of knowledge. So when I'm in the Akash and I'm there and they're training me, All we do is study, we weave, we create, we strategize. It's kind of a multi-dimensional chess. And I have a lot of guardians, teachers that come through and assist me. They're like, hey, this is what we need to do now. Then my work down here in 3D is the interface. I see a lot of the feedback loop of my work above. The golden apples are different consciousness of different galaxies, planets. So the golden apple is this multifaceted symbol representing sacred wisdom, spiritual insight, and the perfected structure of Earth's magnetic field and other planets. When I was learning a lot of the magnetism, a lot of the energies, Newton was actually the one who taught me a lot about the golden apple, the toroid, and he was the last known magician. He was extremely brilliant, and I hope that we can revive a lot of his alchemical projects, a lot of his alchemical studies, because it was the bulk of what he was really trying to give to the world, but we kind of extracted just a portion of that. And they wrote everything, they really wanted to carry on what they have learned. All of these polymaths, they were very obsessed about the Philosopher's Stone, about alchemy, because they knew that we all have that within all of us. And that was the whole point of our existence. I have a post about him on Substack, so if you want to go listen to my transmission with Newton, I will tag it below as well. It's really fun being multidimensional because you are interacting with several aspects of these really famous people, different realities, and you learn about their lives, you feel their essence and their work. We can carry on their legacies. The golden apple, this represents the wisdom gained through Gnostic revelation and remembering experiences that we have accumulated across lifetimes during our spiritual ascension. It is the solar consciousness, similar to ingesting living rays of white golden sunlight to assimilate divine intelligence. So they contain the Emerald Founder records, and a lot of times these are protected by benevolent dragon guardians. In your soul state, you can also visit the Akash. It's open for everyone. You can go there and visit your soul fractal if you've tried astral projecting or remote viewing. There's many things that you can do. You have free will, free reign. It just depends on your embodiment, because sometimes they will not give you the information unless you're really ready for it, when your body can integrate it, because it is really a lot. Like, you feel like you're going crazy, especially when you're intersecting with a lot of these war timelines, war patterns. But if you're just curious about your past history, about yourself, like, it is open, and there are guardians that are there if you want to connect with them. When the planet was divided, the magnetic field was also distorted into reversal patterns known as the poison apple. So these distortions aims to extract the solar consciousness from the original golden apples. Within the Akashic records, or the Akash, this serves as the universal library of all events throughout the worlds, emotions, and intent that have ever occurred in the past, present, or future. I love books. Stories are like portals and dimensions. So when you're reading a book, it moves your consciousness into those types of realities. So whatever you're reading, you can experience that life. And it's like stories within stories within stories. So my future goal, my future task here is to really build a library of knowledge, a living library, which is why I try and transmit these videos to you. These records are protected by guardians such as Queen Hatshepsut and Ezekiel. So they ensure the historical records of these celestial bodies like the Tara and Tiamat. A big part of my ascension was Ezekiel, and I've worked with him closely. He is nothing like what they wrote him in the Bible. I think they really did him dirty. He was a lot like Merlin. He was an incredible architect, and he built a lot of these worlds. When we speak about Metatron, right, Ezekiel was the architect, and Metatron was this template. Think of it as the prime meridian. It is the template, like a cookie cutter, that houses the God blueprint. So he was one of the great master architects who was creating this blueprint. And, we like to personify a lot of these beings because it's a lot easier to associate them with different personalities, the way they look or function, because it's how the human mind kind of understands it. But it's really just frequencies. So they're like different fractals of light. Ezekiel knew a lot about the Metatron blueprint, which is the cube. And this cube is the game, okay? We come here on this earth, or if you're from a different galaxy, a different planet, there are several different games you can play. And so through these games of the cosmos, this is how you can challenge yourself. This is how you can override yourself. You can go through the stages of ascension. So the Metatron's cube is really important because this is what holds the schematics of the cosmos. Again, it is the game of which we can all play in our playground. When I was working with Ezekiel, he gives me a lot of anxieties because he likes to deconstruct things and blow up things, and I have to hold and contain and process those timelines. A lot of the historical figures, they're all still here, and a lot of times we don't remember a lot because the consciousness was super fragmented, complete wipeout of memory. But we're all here. We can't go anywhere until we fix this. The Akash are these protective organic blueprints, such as the Temple of Solomon, anchored within the Albion, which is England. And accessing these libraries is what allows an individual to retrieve information from the universal beehive. Okay, going back to the bees. So we're like little honeybees and we tell our stories, which is why writing, reading my Substack, I'm like being a little bee and I'm sharing you these stories because this is how we can create beliefs. And honey represents the way stories are stored, protected, and passed through time. So just like real honey never spoils, the honey is the book that acts as a preservative for narrative and memory. And it is the literal and metaphorical substance that keeps the underground library alive. When they talk about the Emerald Tablet, that tablet is super hijacked. We have the sapphire tablets, and these are the crystal hard drives that the feminine holds. So, which is why there's a lot of attack on this has been just subjected since forever and ever, raped, killed, all kinds of stuff, because we hold those templates. We hold the Sophianic blueprints. And so the Sophianic daughters, we have a very specific library that is untouchable. It is the backup of the backup of the backup. I'm also going to talk about the Bride of Christ maybe on a different video, but that one is super important also. Honey is the product of the collective work of many bees, of our collective stories, and mirroring how stories are not made only by one person, but by this living web of tellers, listeners, and keepers. Telling stories is very important. It is how we can create new realities through our imagination. Our mind sovereignty is very paramount because when our perception is skewed by others' narrative, it can override our autonomy. Then there is Cosminia. This is the library in the God worlds. And there's also the Akashic library, which holds a lot of the sound and the original tones, different musicalities within the libraries. When you're in the God worlds, all you hear is like different types of music. They represent the higher dimensional counterpart to the Akashic records that are containing these blueprints for the entire cosmic time matrix rather than just planetary or solar histories. The goal is spiritual evolution that involves moving from the poisoned apple, which is the distorted reality, a lot of the lies and false histories, back into the golden apple through truth, gnosis, to achieve enlightenment and the return of the golden egg of origin. It is moving from agnosis, ignorance, to gnosis, studying the Dharma, theurgy. It is the inertia vector of spiritual rest. You are directed away from identification, and it is the act of pulling back and negating the subjective, the ego, the body, the broadcast, to finally reach the objective, which is the soul, the true signal. And we start to peel a lot of the layers of ourselves until we reach back to the core of the golden egg of oneness. Like, we really don't need to complicate a lot of these things because nature is very simple, but it's only through our surrendering and coming down from the overthinking and moving back into our hearts, into our bodies. It's how we can move through this ascension process to really experience these frequencies. And this is what it means to be in the I am, the thatness, tattva. And genuine theurgy doesn't requires rituals. It is purely mental, spiritual act of ascension and insight. Like, you can do it if you want to, but it's not necessary. It's really just knowing thyself. The whole universe is a paradox. You can understand it, but you don't have to force everyone to understand it. And it's really about becoming a clear broadcast signal that rearranges people also. Now let's talk about electricity. If you are a grid worker, grid weaver, think of yourself like you're an electrician or electric engineer of the planet. What we often see within the news, a lot of the political things that go on, it is reflecting what is happening above and what is happening energetically. The Nile is the Kundalini of the earth. It is the vital life force of nature. Then the flow of power moves northward through Sudan, Egypt, Israel, and then the mountains of Turkey, which is the bull, the toroid field, and then Cyprus, which is the birthplace of Aphrodite. So when I was at the museum, I found Aphrodite on the floor and they recovered her in Turkey. Very interesting, which is the head of the snake. So her head was in the wrong place. Love, beauty, and chaos, war, it always goes hand in hand. It's almost like a coin, right? Two sides of the coin. Where there is love, there is also the opposite of love. Which is why the Odyssey was relevant, because instead of Paris choosing love, will, and wisdom, Aphrodite, Hera, and Athena, he only chose Aphrodite. And so Helen of Troy happened, and the whole Odyssey happened. It all cascaded. A lot of these temples, a lot of these sacred objects, because of iconoclasm, a lot of these borders, obelisks have been misplaced, move around. Like, why is Cleopatra's obelisk in New York, in London? It all kind of ties into the planet's magnetism. So temples are ruined. It messes up the whole electrical system of the planet. Before, we had a lot more free energy, so it messes up the timelines. It's why we have diseases. Our magnetism is off. It just messes everything up. Again, we mirror everything. Okay, so I don't know if I should do this now, but I feel like we should weave in the history of Scotland, and those histories is also a hot mess, but to correct those histories, Scotland in 18th and 19th century, Scotland became this global center of intellectual and industrial process. If you wonder why I remember these things, it's the more light you can hold. It's not that I put it all in my brain, it's because I embody these light. So it lives within my cells and I've processed them. The more that you clear your karma, like you can hold more light, you can hold more information. That's what consciousness is. So during those times, thinkers like David Hume and Adam Smith, they revolutionized philosophy and economics, and Scotland was the forefront of this industrial revolution with a lot of the major advancements in the steam-powered James Watt medicine and engineering. Scotland's steering role moved to England. So that also connects to Sudan's role in the Nile's conductivity move to Egypt. So right now I'm mostly focusing on the blue cow grid, which is India. I'm doing a lot of electrical configurations there, a lot of the Asian grids. It's very strategic why I was born to Asia, so that I can tap into these different timelines. But when my soul originally came down here, I entered through the Stargate in the Stonehenge. But that's no longer working. A lot of us came into many different Stargates within the planet. So I work with the Blue Cow grid, I work with the Tibetan grids, all kinds of stuff, because that's where we receive and weave a lot of these information. The blue cow grid in India is the purple amethyst ray. It's also connected to Arizona. These are the mother arcs, think of it. These are the rod and staff. So Arizona is the staff, and this is part of the mother arc, okay? The mother arc is the negative polarity, negative energy. It's like plug and socket, okay? So Arizona is one of the Ark of the Covenant of the Mother Ray, Mother Ark. So the World Cup, it was really important too because Spain is one of the nodes, one of the Mother Ark of the Covenant gates. It was important that the Mother Ark wins this game. So that's why Spain won instead of Argentina. We have been also grid working on Argentina and part of the root of the planet. And you have to, again, think of it like when Earth was still in her Pangea form. There are many different stations and grids of the planet. So we really had to use a lot of our third eye, use 3 of our eyes to see the whole game, okay? And so the Great White Lion is the whole King Arthur timeline. So the blue cow grid, the India grid, purple amethyst ray is what connects to the Great Lion, which is the whole King Arthur timelines. Albion, okay? So the blue cow and the Great White Lion are 2 of the 4 living creatures. We have the Golden Eagle, which is Iran, Iraq, the whole monetary system and their bullshit industrial complex right now. That was my first mission. Crazy. That was messy, and I never thought I would be done with it, but I'm so grateful and so glad that they finally released me there. I love being in the blue cow grid. It's not perfect, but it is so much better. I get to really enjoy and experience the different gods and goddesses they have. The Golden Eagle grid, this is all of America's, it connects through the banking systems. We have the man grid, which is the Polynesian nations. The same week they have the Moana. That was all related to this whole architecture. They come out with these movies at the same time for a specific reason. So, yeah, the man grid, it's in a pretty good condition. I think we've preserved a lot of that. A lot of the indigenous people that live around that area, they're still able to hold the grids there, even though we had to do a lot of fixing there earlier. It's not as bad compared to a lot of the great white lion, the golden eagle. Those are the most damaged grids. So let me try and make this clear again. The purple ray, you can think of them as the Indian pantheon, like Vishnu, Krishna, Malalita, Shiva, Ganesha. And then the blue ray is Yeshua, King Solomon's crew. Ruby ray is King Arthur's crew. And then the golden eagle grid are the seraphims, Archangel Michael, the Egyptian pantheon. This holds a lot of the wealth essences. And wealth was not about money before. Wealth was generosity. Wealth was an abundance of love, an abundance of knowledge, the golden apple. So the great white lion connecting from Egypt, France, this is the grid guardians of the vertical. So this is anchored in Egypt's, the water element, which is the heart in the southern France. It is the mother race of the blue ray and part of the threefold founder flame. So the blue cow grid, India, Tibet, acts as the antenna, the third eye of the planet that allows the mind, Antarctica, to communicate with the rest of the planetary body. So it signals a flow through the Tendi Stargate, which is Kashmir, Iraq, Egypt, Iran. Why we're having this commotion all over there? It's because of that Tendi Stargate. So it eventually interfaces with the great white lion, which is like London, and then the golden eagle, which is America. Okay, we're doing a lot of electrical engineering within the planet. That's why there's all these crazy events here. I'll do a separate video if you really want to learn about the logistics and the engineering of the planet. Right now, I'm mostly working on the blue cow grid because they still have a lot of the correct tones, the Sanskrit, the shlokas that has been passed down for thousands of years. And these geometries, they are like blueprints that blossom. When you speak these mantras, shlokas, they blossom into geometries and they hold the schematics of creation. So you have to have the correct alignment, the correct embodiment. You've emptied yourself, you've put in the work, the dedication, and this is how these blueprints, mantras start to open up. You become a guardian of the blueprints of creation, eternal life, right? So when you advance in your spiritual studies, it's mostly about the architecture, about the embodiment. It is about building your crystal cathedral, your God mind, and also within your body so that you can house these currents, you can house these energies. That's why yoga and movement, martial arts, even in Taoist alchemy, there's a lot of moving the body because that is how you can house. Otherwise, you go crazy. If you look at a lot of the Western philosophers, yes, they can use philosophy as a way to ascend. I like the Neoplatonists, but it's a lot of rumination and overthinking. So you need to incorporate the rest of your body. So that's why we go through a lot of meditation processes and initiations, especially in Tantra. There's a lot of secrets because they want to preserve that. Unless you're really initiated into it, you're ready, they won't even open up for you. When I'm speaking about these things, some people might get it, some people might not. That is for a reason, because I can speak in coded terms, because if they're not meant to receive this, their body cannot hold it and it will just drive you insane. So, building your crystal cathedral, your mind, your temple, this is your base, this is your foundation, so that you don't go insane, because it is impossible to drink the whole ocean of the universe. So, even for me, it took me a really long time, years, to even empty myself. I've already started in my past lives, and now I'm in my Dharma, moksha, so that I can house these different types of energies. I can hold light, hold more intelligence, and I can weave consciousness. With my constant practice, I can house Malalita's energy, I can house Shiva, Vishnu's energy, but it still takes time to get used to it. One of the reasons why we use mala beads is because it's kind of like your telephone to the gods. And let's say when you're praying, when you are connecting with their energy, you're in devotion and you're concentrated, you enter this field, you enter this time field where you meet them in the Maya, they come down and they give you their frequency, they give you information. This is how you know that you are being guided, and through that you can translate it. I practice all kinds of embodiment practices, but Tantra is something that I've really felt called to, and I just kind of mix it with a lot of the authentic dragon teachings. It is uniquely helpful, especially during the Kali Yuga, which is the age of darkness, distraction, and dense matter. It is a path of affirmation and transformation rather than negation. While other parts, for example, yoga, might require a withdrawal from the world, Tantra uses the very energies of the world to achieve transcendence. And there are many different branches. When you look at spirituality, it's like this big tree, and there's different branches of where you can go. So that's why in Tantra and yoga, Buddhism, lineage is very important, because then they can trace, where does this shloka come from? Where does this mantra come from? And it is a direct transmission, because these things are incredibly sacred. They are the schematics of the cosmos, schematics of the whole universe. Now, in our current age, our human mind is often restless, distracted. We feel a deep fall into the degradation of matter. So, the key difference between Tantra and yoga is that yoga often involves fighting against the natural energies like sex and desire to create a new center of being. Tantra is basically saying, accept whatsoever you are. And Tantra also has a lot of branches, so it just kind of depends where you get initiated into or what you choose to go towards. But a lot of times it is the guides, your spiritual gurus, that will kind of nudge you into a specific path. And so I was already working with a lot of the Sophianic frequencies. It was just kind of a natural transition. So I was initiated into Malalita Sahasranama, really embodying a lot of the shlokas and being disciplined with my practice. It is an honor to feel several of these frequencies, but yeah, they're kind of just guiding light to help you get into your highest state. I don't need to, but it's still nice to have gurus and guidance from people that have different points of views. And I'm also working a lot with Shiva right now, with the masculines. It's really fun, and he teaches me a lot on how to be stronger, how to be more ferocious. And yeah, the whole Shiva and Shakti concepts, right? It views every desire and energy as a vehicle to go beyond itself, turning the poison of the age into medicine. Because let's say if you want to start a business or you're a creative, through your creation, through living in the material world, this could still be a path of transcendence because now you don't feel so alone. You have several gurus that can help you along the way, but you're open to trying many different philosophies until you really find what is home to you. And that's what I feel the most at home. And yeah, it's just been a pleasure to really embody these energies. With my content creation, this is my path to my transcendence, to show up and to also teach others, because I wish that when I was going through my own ascension process, I wish that there was more teachers that understood the higher dimensions and helped me a lot to move the density faster. But I did have a lot of great teachers here on the physical reality, but I got more of my guidance from my multidimensional gurus, guides. But yeah, so now I am that person for a lot of people. And so if we want to live happily here on earth while we're alive here, I want more love, romance, devotion, and passion. We have to own our own power. So one of the lessons that Shiva was teaching me was putting the crown on my head and what it means to embody wisdom, the weight of the crown. So yeah, it's all of these juiciness and reclaiming your erotic power, because naturally Shiva and Shakti, it's all about creation and containment. We are building heaven on earth here. And again, this is where I say that a lot of these tantric teachings is super distorted, because when we say tantra, we automatically think of sex. Like, no, sex is just a function of a larger philosophy, and it is the cherry on top. But you first have to build your own cathedral, your own sovereignty, so that you don't keep enmeshing with your partner, with your families. You build your temple first so that you can really enjoy the full breath of life, because our erotic power is the healing existence. And we claim that erotic power, we learn how to be responsible of that eros, because through that eros, your life force is the arrow that will lead you to your highest good, to climbing the ladder of beauty, to your gnosis. And it's like a doorway. So it's like your propulsion. Our sacrums are incredibly important. So when our sacrums are not functioning, it disrupts a lot of our thyroid, our hormones. And you see men balding because they're not having enough sex. And women are angry all the time because we're not having sex. So it's all this downstream. Our nature is to make love. Our nature is to create beauty. And through that, through our eros, we can still penetrate layers in society and create this bubble that we can really enjoy splendidly. I have this teacher that would say, can you imagine how different the world would be if we were all well fucked, well loved, and well resourced? Tantra teaches that there is no gap between the divine and the physical world. And in an age where we feel crippled or guilty by these dualistic religions that condemn the body and love, Tantra offers this path of freedom and happiness by affirming that this body is the holy temple. It is the playground of where Shiva and Shakti can play. So Tantra arose during turbulent times when the external security was non-existent, and it offers the greatest empowerment of all, the power to determine your own inner state regardless of the external circumstances. While Kali Yuga is often seen as the worst age, it is also considered the best, because the density of the age allows for the greatest amount of spiritual growth. This is when we can really alchemize and transmute super fast self-realization through the friction of material life. In Tantra, feminine deities like Mother Kali, Tara, Malalita, Devi, they're all central. They're kind of the ground, the foundation, the cosmic mother, where all the other gods can play and build. So just like the Sri Yantra, Shiva holds the form so that Shakti can play in the middle. Purification is so important because when you start interacting with different energies, you have to know where your center is because you can be pulled in many different directions. Our subtle body, it's called a subtle body for a reason, and you can be influenced a lot when there's a lot of different varying frequencies. So learning about your own frequencies, learning where your center is, it's how you can redirect yourself and get back into alignment. Having guides helps you pull you up to the correct branch of reality, to the highest good. It's like a tree, so you stay on the thickest branch so you don't get lost. And so there are different paths, right? There's the right-hand paths, which follows the established moral, ethical, or religious structures. This emphasizes a lot of the union with the divine, selflessness, and transcendence. It works with light, order, harmony, often white magic, and the goal is usually enlightenment, oneness, or merging with the higher source. This tends to respect a lot of the tradition, hierarchy, and collective good. So most mainstream religions, such as ceremonial magic, Golden Dawn style, many New Age paths. And then the left-hand path, this rejects or deliberately breaks societal religious taboos or norms and focuses on individual sovereignty and self-deification, becoming your own god. It works with the shadow, chaos, personal, and sometimes black magic. But the goal is usually apotheosis, radical self-empowerment, and freedom from external authority. Often antinomian, against the law, and embraces the forbidden or nonsense as a tool. Either path is not wrong, but that's why we unify with both and we walk the middle way. So that's what I'm walking. The middle way is the conscious choice to not fully commit to either the left hand or the right hand path, but instead to move through the central channel, integrating both while staying balanced. So why the middle way fits in my work? The right-hand path would be trying to stay pure and follow traditional rules and only work with light, harmony, love and light. And that often bypasses a lot of the heavy, messy timelines that I need to transmute in my body in order for me to collapse these timelines. And then the left-hand path would be fully embracing taboo, chaos, radical self-sovereignty, which can become isolating or overly destabilizing when I'm already carrying a lot of dense collective material. So the middle way allows me to use the tools of both paths when needed, stay anchored in the body and the planetary grids with my current missions, and then transmute without getting lost in either extreme polarity. I can hold a lot of the paradox, a lot of the nonsense, imagination, without collapsing into confusion or dogma. And this is why many indigo, starseed, and grid workers naturally gravitate towards the middle. The work requires both structures to hold the field and to integrate the shadows, to actually clear the timelines through healing ourselves. And then to start learning about Tantra, it is important that we distinguish between the modern pop culture version and the existential practice-based lineage that is passed down in ancient traditions. There is a lot of devotion and training, and Tantra is not a philosophy to be studied only by the mind, but it is existential. It really comes down to your practice and your communication with your higher guides, your communion with the divine. It is through that you experience all of these magical things. Your life will become super magical, and the interface of the hologram is almost instantaneous. You will learn more about this as you practice deeper. And yes, scriptures are great. Books are there for you to study. I always rave about the Bhagavad Gita, the Tantra. Scriptures are great. There are several books to study. If you are interested in starting, you could always start with the Bhagavad Gita, the Mahabharata, and learning about the yoga systems or different Tantra systems. There's so many things that you can learn. But if you are just studying theory and you're not experiencing it, you're always living in your head, you're not experiencing the full breadth of it. So reading about light is intellectual, but becoming embodied, capable of it, it is existential. So a lot of the tantric texts, they usually dialogue between the Shiva and Devi lovers, and this signifies that these teachings, it must be approached with a heart, devotion, and love for the subject, because you are now embodying the divine love rather than just a clinical or academic interest. So I was initiated into the Malalita Sahasranama, and I do a lot of the Shiva meditations, Shiva stotrams, and because of its architecture and structure of what I'm currently doing. Communion with the divine love. Communion with the divine is the heart of the philosophy of Tantra. This is where we chant 1,000 names of the Divine Mother, and these shlokas take you across the ocean of suffering without requiring complex rituals. The Divine Mother is the ground of which everything exists, and through that balance of masculine and feminine energies, you can experience these frequencies, and life truly becomes magical, these energies. So all of our wandering mind, now we can go back home because we have a guide, and it clears a lot of the samskara, our emotional dust, a lot of our karma, and our psyche. When you're going through a lot of hard things, when I'm crying and just being a baby, I usually call on to Shiva and I offer my tears to him, and then he destroys and dissolves it. He's a really awesome guide. When you are starting to practice Tantra, the first mental step is to stop fighting yourself. Even for me, I had to be celibate for close to 5 years now so that I can purify myself, cleanse myself. It wasn't by choice. It just so happened of what my soul wanted to do, what my mission here on earth is, especially healing a lot of the dark mother, dark feminine frequencies, patterns. And so until now, I've always known that I'm supposed to teach a lot of the Sophianic embodiments, a lot of the Shiva and Shakti concepts. It's just taken a really long time because I had to really weed out a lot of the distortions in my grid and the collective so that I can bring this divine love and transmit it to everybody, because that's what we're coming back to. Christ, Sophia consciousness is about this love and creation, and that's how we can continue evolution. It's always this emptying and filling of different energies. When we can view our natural energies, such as our emotions, desires, even sex, these are not enemies or taboo, but they are very essential in our spiritual growth. They are the fuel for your transformation, your life force energy, and we can really start operating from our own energy center. It can be a little bit confusing when you first start, but I usually just ask my guides to bring me the right people, and a teacher will show up to you, or you feel gravitated towards somebody and you want to learn more about them. So that's what I did. And now that I'm sharing a lot of these things, all of this is kind of my own gnosis, my own experience. Ultimately, you have the free will, you have the choice, you can move through several different rays of the rainbow bridge. There are so many different rays of spirituality. Sometimes people feel called to study more yoga, study more Tantra, study more Taoist alchemy. They might want to study more of the Christian theology or whatever sacred text that you feel called to. That is why we are fixing the rainbow bridge, because there are several roads and pathways back to ascension and climbing to your highest expression. There is also a lot of play in my architecture. I can get very serious because I'm an INFJ, INTJ, and a lot of times it requires a lot of seriousness when I'm working with these timelines, but they always remind me to find the zest, the nectar, so there's more sweetness, because the more we play, that is how we can transform a lot of the poison into more of the medicine. And through our innocence, right, coming back to our inner child, inner children, the more happy your inner child is, then it is a lot easier to be creative, a lot easier to create, and you can really imagine something that's never imagined before. And you only have that gift, nobody else, because you are a rare fractal. To me, enjoying the pleasures in life also requires a lot of dedication, discipline, devotion, purity. Then we can go buck wild. There is so much that I can talk about. It is endless, but I think that is a great stopping point for today. I want you to think about, I'm going to give you this link, this music. It's a short mantra called Asatoma, and you can meditate on it this week and allow the mantras, the tones to really open up to you and see what kind of lessons it teaches you. You know, if you are needing more guidance, usually these geometries, these schematics, it really surprises you. So journaling about what comes through, the more that you listen to it. If you made it this far, congratulations. This is a masterclass. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for being here and building this living library, our tree of knowledge, and for receiving the golden apple. Make sure to subscribe to our newsletter on Substack. This is where I share more of my journal entries. I have my one-on-one sessions for quantum resonance architecture down below. Whatever spiritual needs you might have, any questions, I think that it's great to do a one-on-one where we can really sit through and study about your history, study about your ancestors and your bloodlines, your time vectors. The way that I do my sessions is that I look at your time vectors. These are like different time signatures of your soul, and it's like these rays, and we have different complex histories within your family dynamics or your lifetime. So we have a lot of buy-in from our family. We're not only healing, but we are reconstructing a whole new operating system. And there is a lot of nuances in each of our journeys. If you don't want to do a one-on-one, I also have my soul blueprint where I email you a PDF of what your soul entails using Vedic astrology, using astronomy, and then I mix in my special sauce there. Sometimes we are really coming up to ourselves and understanding our map, understanding ourselves. It requires a teacher who understands the higher dimensions to help you pop out of density so you can live life more blissfully. We don't have to keep suffering. We don't have to keep struggling. And the more that I can help you understand these things, or at least feel it in your body, feel the frequency of it, you don't have to be alone in all of this, because there are several tools that can help you transcend yourself. And I always say this, that I'm in the business of liberating souls. And the more that I help you, the more that I can understand myself and understand the collective stories. So my one-on-ones are quite intimate, and yeah, we open your genetic library, and through that, it also helps my grid work. I have my meditations on my shop. Check them out. See whatever you feel called to trying out. Those are very high frequencies there, and that's where I do a lot of my programming as well. And I added some merch on my shop too, so make sure to go check it out. If you have any other questions, concerns, any reactions, you can message me, DM me, and I would be happy to answer you. I know that there is a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of people see the lower densities, lower timelines, but we are just in different hosting systems, how we perceive reality. So that's why we dream a better dream. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode.